Next, we're going to introduce the 3D spinning paper cup rocket. To create the rocket, a Dunkin' Donut coffee cup was modeled into a rocket, and then pictures were taken sequentially to imply that it turned around. It was shot against a green screen, and the green screen was dropped out in Photoshop. Once the green screen was edited from the rocket, they were transferred into one PSD with layers to be imported into After Effects. To import the PSD with the rocket spinning, we went to File, Import, File, or hit Command-I, and selected the PSD with the rocket layers, and changed Import as Composition Retain Layer Size. I'll double click on the composition that came in automatically, and now each of the rockets on their separate layers. I'll turn off the background by clicking on the icon that looks like a checkerboard next to the word Active Camera in the comp window. I'll need to reduce the scale and point the rocket layers up. I'll shift select all of them, and I'll hit R on the keyboard, and if I start to rotate, they will all rotate collectively. Now to make it smaller, I'll hit S for scale, and I'll reduce them all so that they fit on the composition window. I want to make this sequence into a 3-second clip. I'm going to select the timeline and hit Command K, or go to Composition, Composition Settings. And I'll reduce the duration to 3 seconds. Since there are 6 and I want it to be 3 seconds, each one will be half of a second. If I check my timeline by hitting Command K, I have a frame rate of 30 frames per second. I'm going to shift select for clips, and in the timeline I'll put 15. With them still selected, I'll hold down the Option and hit the close bracket to clip them all to the location of the playback head. Now I can go to Animation, Keyframe Assistance, Sequence Layers, and I'll click OK. And now I have a 3-second clip of the rocket rotating. To make this easy to composite with the background image, I'm going to export it as a QuickTime movie with an alpha channel. I'll go to Composition, Add to Render Queue. Where it says Output 2, I'll click on DunkinROCKET Spin. I'll give it a name, and I'll click on the blue word Lossless, leaving the format QuickTime. I'll change the channels from RGB to RGB Alpha. I will turn the audio file output off. I'll click OK and click on my Render button. Now I'll import the .mov and integrate it into the Dunkin animation of the drawing board. With the project window selected, I'll go to File Import, or hit Command-I, and I'll locate the .mov that was generated. With the rocket imported in, I'll drag it to the comp window, and I'll start to move it towards the end of the movie. I need to extend the last frame of the background. To do so, I'll right-click and choose Time, Enable Time Remapping. I'll put my cursor over the end of the drawing board video and drag it to the end of the video. The first thing I want to do now is scale the rocket down to the proportions that are on the drawing board. Hitting S on the keyboard, I'll reduce the scale to about 48%, and I'll place it over the rocket. Before I sync the paper cup rocket with the one on the drawing board, I need to speed it up so that they keep the same speed roughly as this one comes off the screen. To do that, I'll right-click on the clip in the timeline, go to Time, Time Stretch. I'm going to reduce it to 30%. And the problem is it doesn't go the extent of the remaining timeline. I'll select the DunkinROCKET QuickTime file in the project window. I'll right-click and choose Interpret Footage Main. And at the bottom, I'll loop it 4 times. And then I'll stretch it out for the duration of the clip. Now we've got more than one revolution, and it's kind of keeping up with the speed on the drawing board. Now the next thing we need to do is line up the rocket over the one in the drawing board at the point at which it just barely starts to go off the drawing paper. And it's going to be roughly 3 seconds. With the paper cup rocket selected, I'll hit P for position. I'll drop the first keyframe at 3 seconds. I'll drag forward until the drawing on the drawing board just goes off the top of the picture. And then I'm going to drag the cardboard cup rocket up to about the middle of the screen. Now I'd like it to sit in the middle and just rotate a little bit before it finally makes its exit off the top. So I'm going to add another second of time. And I'll copy and paste the keyframe I just put in to that point. Now when I drag through, the rocket flies off the paper and kind of hovers in the middle of the screen, and then I'll go to the end and I'll drag it off the top. So we should have something like this. Now I'd like it to appear as if it's coming from the top edge of that piece of paper right along here. To do that, we're going to make a pre-composed layer of the rocket, and then we'll mask it off. I'll select the spinning cup rocket in the timeline. I'll go to Layer, Pre-composed Layer, move all attributes, and click OK. Now I want to clip it there in the timeline so visually I know where this begins. With the playback head where it is now, hold down the Option key and hit the open bracket. Now all I need to do is drag the rocket through until it's away from the drawing paper, and I'm going to hit Q on the keyboard, or I'll click on the little box or the pen tool to create my mask. And I'll go across the top of the drawing paper. Now all I need to is drag through, and the next thing I need to do is go to the mask layer in the timeline and click on Invert. And now I have what I wanted. Now the values of that paper cup rocket are a little brighter than the drawing board, so to integrate them a little bit better, I'm going to go to Effects, Color Correction, and Levels, and I'll just darken the values of that a little bit. I'll reduce the white by dragging the middle value to the right. And I might adjust the gamma just a little bit to reduce the white glare. Now I'll hit Command S to save.